Elixir, I barely even know her. In this video, I'll be ranking all the elixirs in Baldur's Gate 3 on a tier list. Now with elixirs, you can only have one active at a time. There's actually a couple here that are unique in the fact that you can stack them. And also things like the giant form and the giant form from the new giant barbarian will actually stack with elixirs of the Colossus, so you can become huge, which is absolutely hilarious to see. And some of these elixirs have some quite interesting effects. There are 29 of them total here, which we'll be breaking down. And first we'll be starting with the Elixir of Barkskin. Now this one isn't really that great. It changes your armor class to 16 max. This means you can't stack it even further. If you use Shield of Faith, you're unfortunately stuck with a 16 armor class. I currently have a 17, which isn't too hard to get, especially if you're like a Draconic Sorcerer. This makes you look freaky, and then, yeah, it will reduce your overall armor class. It is a little bit weird with how it works. Like I got armor equipped so you can go a little bit higher there. And then you see here I got 16 armor class, but it says 10 base plus 6 plus 3, which would not equal the 16 that's there. It's strange with how it works. It's going to limit you in most situations. It's not really that good. One nice thing, however, is if you end up getting the acid condition, which will reduce your armor class by 2, it doesn't affect you if you got Barkskin, but that's not good enough to make this a very useful potion. I would say it's somewhere around D to C tier. I'm sure there's some situations where you could like maximize the effectiveness by like increasing your armor class if you're in a wild shape form, but that's really the extent of it. So I'm not going to put in the D tier. I'll set it in the C tier. There's many better elixirs here. Next, we got another one that plays interestingly. The Elixir of the Battlemage's power. Arcane Acuity is one of the most effective things in the game. Now, typically, you see here, we got a spell save DC of 17 at base. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop this here, and it's going to increase it, but it's weird in how it works with turns. So that gives us that nice boost there, plus 3 from Arcane Acuity. And if this, as your turn starts, it'll end up reducing the count by 1. But if you get attacked, you lose 2 stacks of Arcane Acuity. But the nice thing about this is it'll replenish it for those 3 turns where it's active. So it's a little bit weird in how it works, but I can't deny a plus 3 to armor, or plus 3 to spell save DC is very nice. You can see it there, it's running out the clock, but whenever you're in actual combat, it'll go down to 2 stacks. But then if you get attacked, removing those 2 stacks, it bounces it back up to 3. Arcane Acuity is so easy to get though. There's actually an item that was fixed in patch 8, one of my new favorite items, with the Gloves of the Battlemage's power, which I unfortunately put in the camp chest, but when you hit a target with a spell or a cantrip that uses a weapon, you gain Arcane Acuity. Smites count, Booming Blade counts, and base attacks with Shadow Blade counts. So this is a nice item to get that as well. Hat of the Storm Science power, the Fire Acuity hat, and the Helmet of Arcane Acuity are other items that will also apply this benefit. My favorite being the Helmet of Arcane Acuity here, because an arrow of many targets can give you plus 10 to your spell save DC really quickly. And you'll only find this potion after level 6, and by that time you likely will be close to getting one of the Arcane Acuity items. So while this is really good, I think that there's better ways to get Arcane Acuity, and everyone's likely going to be using those items. So I think that it's probably beat at level 6 A tier, I'd say, but B tier probably around the plus 3 to spell save DC is extremely nice. But we do have better options like the Elixir of Bloodlust, which is actually really good if you're in honor mode on a spellcaster. So what this does, whenever you kill a foe, you gain 5 temporary health points and an additional action. Now, this action does work weird if you're in honor mode. What happens is it only counts as 1 attack if you have, let's say, a fighter it's a level 11, which 3 extra attacks, it'll only give them 1 extra attack. However, if you're a spellcaster, that means fireball into fireball if you take out a target with it. So the Elixir of Bloodlust is honestly one of the best in the game. It's absurd how good this one is. I'm literally just going to throw it in the S tier right now because of how useful an extra action is. I don't really need to explain that. One of the best in the game, the best for spellcaster, I would say, and that's why we're going to be putting it above the Elixir of the Battlemage's power, because if you're a spellcaster, plus 3 to spell save DC is nice, but 2 spells is better than 1. And next we have the Elixir of Darkvision. So I'm going to show you the VFX there, not really anything there. This gives you the ability to see in the dark up to 12 meters, which is okay, I guess. It can be useful in a race that doesn't already get dark vision, or if you're not playing a class that gets dark vision, but there are many other ways to go about getting this, so I just think that this one is a little bit of a weaker choice compared to a lot of the other ones. So you can find this as early as level 1 in the game, so it could be useful in certain instances. It lasts until long rest. It's not terrible, but I do feel like there's better options out there. I might just set it into the B tier as well. Maybe the Arcane Acuity is a little bit better, but we'll set it right around there. But next we got the Elixir of Guileful Movement. Your movement speed cannot be reduced by terrain or spells. You can't be paralyzed or restrained and replaces other elixirs. This is just basically freedom of movement in a potion form. This is extremely useful on any class that needs to get up close and personal, like a fighter. Some classes, like the ranger, will get this ability just naturally, but being able to run at full movement speed when you're, let's say, running on ice, this can be very useful. Since mobility is so important for a lot of different classes, I'm going to set this one up pretty high on the list. I think this is probably higher A tier choice. This one doesn't appear until level 6, like the Battlemage's Power Elixir, but I think this is better. Everyone needs to move around, even spellcasters for their positioning. Martial classes need to get up close and personal to attack. And if you're slinging a bunch of ice spells, this at least gives you a little bit of a protection there in terms of not getting slowed down. And next is Elixir of Heroism. This is actually crazy because this will stack with Blessed. It gives you the Blessed condition, so you go ahead, chug that down. You get a nice 10 temporary health points. You also get the Heroic, which is... It's interesting in how it works. So yeah, you get 2 weird conditions here. This gives you that 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws. But the nice benefit about it is you also can get blessed again. So we can go ahead there with that extra bless and boom, double bless. Yeah, that's possible. So a nice 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws times 2. Basically 2d4. Very good. This is a potion that you can get literally at the start of the game. Bless is going to be extremely effective at the start. Does have a little bit of VFX going on there, but yeah, this one is one that I'd have to say is another high pick. Just because Bless is so good, you can get this early on. Maybe I'll shuffle the Arcane Acuity back down to B tier. It's somewhere around the B to A tier, but Heroism is really good. 10 temporary health points and getting those bonuses you're saving throws. This means the difference between getting hit with a spell and also landing your attacks, which early game is extremely effective. I've considered putting this one into the S tier, but I do think that I'm going to reserve that for some of the more game-changing ones. Bless is very useful, though, and this is a potion that you want to prioritize getting early on in the game if possible. Next up is the Elixir of Peerless Focus. Gain advantage on concentration saves. We all know how good that is. There's even items that will give you that. And also, you can't be put to sleep or charmed. This is really useful because... early on, you can get this at level 1, and advantage in concentrations when you're oftentimes breaking your concentrations is so good. It's easy to lose concentrations until you get one of the... there's many items in the game that'll give you advantage in concentrations. This is just another way to get that, especially early on in the game. And not being able to be put to sleep is pretty nice too. This allows you to use like the Glyph of Warding Sleep, and you can blast it at your feet, putting everyone around you to sleep. Very useful early on in the game, and actually pretty good throughout. So I'd have to say this one is probably high B tier to A tier. Being able to hold your concentration is so important early on in the game and even in through the later game, but you will get items for that. Next, we got the Elixir of See Invisibility. This is a funny one. This basically lets you see invisibility, as the name implies. There are some instances where this is good. You have this little eyeball above your head. It's nice to have this when you know that you're getting into a fight where there's invisible targets. This can be a great one to have on your character just because the ability to see invisible creatures is so useful. Now, there are some other ways around invisibility, which I just want to share with you quickly. So if you got a cleric and they got the spell Create or Destroy Water, this is one of the friendliest ways to do it because this won't trigger combat. You can drop down this Create Water pool, boom, get everyone wet. They'll take double damage from cold and lightning spells, but on top of that, it reveals invisible targets. So that is good. Also, you can drop down Fireball, Lightning Strike, Ice Storm, any area of effect to try and fish out invisible creatures, but still seeing invisibility is really nice. So I will throw this one at least into the B tier. It's pretty effective at times. Now, I love the Elixir of the Colossus here, giving you an additional 1d4 damage. That's okay. You gain advantage on strength checks. Also okay. They're not as plentiful as dexterity. And saving throws replaces other effects. Yeah. Basically, you want to have... so this will give you an additional 1d6 of damage with the giant form. And then the Elixir of the Colossus, as I showed off at the start of the video, can make you comically large. And I'm an enjoyer of large characters, so this is really fun. It's hilarious to see some of the other characters in the game. Unfortunately, in cutscenes, you go back to being short, and then, yeah, you're big character here. Silliness aside, an additional 1d4 of damage is nice. And the fact that it can stack twice is also pretty cool, despite saying that it gives you enlarge until long rest. It's actually double enlarge, so Elixir of the Colossus and then our giant form from the sword there. If you're a giant barbarian, you can also stack that. If you're a Dwergar, any other form of greater enlargements will actually stack with this elixir. However, let's say you took a giant barbarian and added in the Baldur and Giant Slayer. Those two don't stack. This is the only one that stacks, meaning it's actually pretty good if you wanted to do something with the giant barbarian. Like, this also lets you throw characters a little bit more easy, so yeah, you can, my strength isn't very high on this character, so it's a little too heavy to throw, but on a giant barbarian, this is a really good one. I personally prefer the strength potions, but it's fun to be large and in charge, so on a barbarian, this is pretty crazy. throwing creatures off of ledges. You can basically throw anything with this. I'm going to put it into the A tier. It is pretty solid overall. Next is the Elixir of Viciousness. This is a funny one. Now, I did a tier list of the best fighter subclasses yesterday, and people were arguing with me that the champion is really good because the champion gives you the increased critical hit chance by 5% or reducing the critical threshold by 1. I think it's better personally to take the Battlemaster fighter. That's besides the point. An increased critical hit chance is super good. If you're crit fishing, this is super useful. This equates to about a 5% increase in your overall critical hit chance, which is something really nice because critical hits, especially let's say you're playing a half orc barbarian, you get additional damage dies on that. So the higher the crit chance, the higher the damage. On specific builds, this can be really good, but across the board, anyone can benefit from it if they're going to be using an attack roll. This applies less to spellcasters that have like spell saves like Fireball, but Scorching Ray can critically hit. Things like that are nice. So I do think the Elixir of Viciousness is pretty useful, and it may actually be one that I think is an S tier. It's a low S tier, but an increased critical hit chance is extremely effective. And the other thing, I did put the Heroism Potion high because it's a 1d4 bonus to your attack roll. This is also quite good because a critical hit is a guaranteed hit. So this further increases your chances of hitting alongside the amount of damage that you'll be dealing. Another extremely effective one, the Elixir of Vigilance. And this is one you can find from level 1 too, whereas the Elixir of Viciousness is only a level 6. The Vigilance gives you a +5 bonus to your initiative, which is huge. And take into consideration, this is different from in like D&D. If you're to play tabletop, you usually do a 1d20 for your initiative rolls. In Baldur's Gate 3, it's a d4 die. I also recommend using the d20 initiative die because it makes this a little bit better, or it makes this a little bit worse, and it makes it more balanced in my opinion. Because a +5 to initiative, if someone's rolling a d4 and they don't have any dexterity, you are always going to go faster. You're always going to go first compared to them because at the highest they can roll is a 4. And if you roll a 0, let's say, you still have a +5, meaning you're always going to go first. Also, can't be surprised is really nice because in honor mode or even any game mode, if you get surprised, you lose your turn, and that can be devastating. Having some character be able to go first is really effective. So yeah, this is another one that I would say is S tier. It's better than the Viciousness Potion. I'm still going to throw in the S tier though. +5 to initiative, as I mentioned, is massive. Sometimes going first, especially if you're a sorcerer who has haste, that's 2 spells and then a quicken spell. 3 spells can turn the tide of battle really quickly. In a game where the action economy is something that people preach heavily, being able to go first is very important. Now here's an interesting one, the Tadpole Elixir. This gives you Psionic Weakening, very bad, and Psionic Enrichment. Now, this can be interesting for a variety of reasons. So basically what this does, you get disadvantage on your Constitution, Wisdom, and Intelligence saving throws, not Charisma. So it's a little bit different than mental saves. Constitution saves, let's say you're holding a concentration. If you have a disadvantage on Constitution saves, your concentration is likely going to break at the first attack. This does give you, it doesn't list the benefit, or I guess it doesn't even list the benefit that you get, but you get advantage on your attacks. So that can be nice too. Oddly enough, it's not applying. You actually get the advantage after using a Lithid ability. So you do have to use something here. So boom, we'll attack there. And then we get our Psionic Enrichment. So advantage on all attacks for 3 rounds. But the constant disadvantage is actually pretty rough. It is nice to get advantage on attacks, but I would actually recommend if you need advantage to maybe use the Risky Ring instead. The Risky Ring means targets will have advantage on you for attacks, but I do think that sometimes a little bit better than having the disadvantage on all the mental saves, and this is something that'll always persist. You have to continually keep doing Illithid abilities to get your bonus advantage on attacks. Isn't terrible, but disadvantage on Constitution, Wisdom, and Intelligence saving throws is devastating. If you have disadvantage on Wisdom saves, every command spell, every hold person, you're failing pretty much. You're going to have a very hard time with it unless you're a very high Wisdom character. Yeah, and have bonuses to your saving throws like Bless or things like that. So even then, it's pretty brutal. So that's a tough downside. This is the only really elixir that gives you a downside. It can be good on certain builds, especially if you're utilizing the Illithid abilities, but I think this is one of the lower options. I'm just going to set that maybe into the D tier just because the downsides are so heavy compared to the upsides. Getting advantage on attacks, don't get me wrong, is great, but getting a additional 10 health points and a 1d4 bonus to your attack rolls is obviously a lot better because there's no real downside. Someone may have a useful way to utilize that, but I just think that it's a little bit of a downside too much. So next we got some of the best potions with our strength potions. Now, a little fun fact, if you want to stock up on elixirs of Hill Giant Strength, here's how to do it. Auntie Ethel, when she's in the Grove, will always carry 3 of these. And the thing is, you can have a character level up and it refreshes her stock. So let's say you're at level 5, you respec your entire party and then go steal the gold back from Withers, and then go to Auntie Ethel. You can have every character level up. You can get maximum basically stacks of your Elixir of Hill Giant Strength. You can also steal from targets. I do have a video on how to use the gold glitch to make great advantage of this. Increasing your strength to 21 is huge, especially early on in the game. If you are playing a throw Zerker, if you're throwing the giant barbarian, if you're playing an open hand monk, this is pretty much essential because this lets you spec into dexterity to get your armor class high. And then this also lets you dump your strength and put those points into other stats like constitution or wisdom. This is really good because it's hard to get a 20 strength in this early game, especially without sacrificing another stat. This is extremely effective in a variety of different ways, and the fact that you can get this so early on, and it's really good. I'm just going to put this up into the S tier. It's extremely effective. And you know what's better? You know what's funnier than 24? 25. No, we got 27, even better with the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. That was a SpongeBob reference. It's dumb. The Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength is only available later on in the game. You have to hit level 9 before these start appearing, but this is extremely effective because this gives you a +8 to your strength checks. You can't get your strength higher than this naturally. It's really good. This is a potion that I use often because that +8 to strength means a lot. This means your Baldur and Giant Slayer, that's a +16 to the damage, which is crazy. And then this also means that the strength, or if you were to use the Titan String Bow, this adds your strength modifier at +8 to all the damage. This can be really good really quickly. Don't have to explain this one too much. Everyone knows how powerful that is. I don't know if it's better than the Bloodlust potion. It's better for martial characters. This is better because if you're in honor mode, that extra action you get can only mean 1 extra attack. But if it's outside honor, so this is the outside honor mode, I would say this is a little bit, outside honor mode, I think this one's better. Inside honor mode, I think this one's better. It's really down to that. They're both extremely effective, and I would say the 2 best elixirs in the game. Let me know your thoughts between these two, though, because I was thinking long and hard on this the last few days, because I do think the Bloodlust potion is extremely effective, but does have its limitations in honor mode, whereas you can't get a +8 strength any other way, and strength is really beneficial to throwing builds and monks and things like that. So for maximizing builds, this is going to be good. Obviously, the Bloodlust potion is super useful, but mostly on spellcasters. You know what? I feel like people are going to be upset if I put the strength potion above. I'm going to put the Bloodlust at the top. Now we have the 4 elixirs of Arcane Cultivation. So there's Arcane Cultivation, Greater Elixir, Superior Elixir, and Supreme. That's Preem Choom. So a level 1 spell slot, 2, 3, and 4. Obviously, a level 1 spell slot is nice, but that's not going to be a game changer. I will throw this one into the C tier. A level 2 spell slot is a little bit better by nature. We're going to throw that into the B tier, and then into the +3. This is where it starts to get a little bit different. So a +3 can mean a lot of things. Let's say you're an Eldritch Knight. Typically, the Eldritch Knight can't get a level 3 spell slot. It only gets level 2. This can change because you can pop that, get yourself that extra spell slot. And the reason that I'm going to bring this up is because the patch 8 update to Baldur's Gate 3 added Shadow Blade to the spell list of the Eldritch Knight. Now, there's one problem with it. The upcasting is at level 3. So if you were to cast the Shadow Blade spell, it's going to be maxed at level 2, which is a 2d8 of damage. If you have a level 3 spell slot, it becomes a 3d8 of damage, which is obviously much better. And with a 3d8, it's doubled if you have the Resonance Stone. So you can put out some massive damage numbers with a level 3 spell slot. So for that reason, I'm actually going to put this one into the A tier. And obviously a level 4 spell slot's even better, so I'm going to put that also in the A tier, but I don't think it's that much better, because level 3 is whenever you start to get the great spells like Fireball, Spirit Guardians, and also you get the, obviously, Shadow Blade being a very beneficial spell that naturally you can't get that if you're an Eldritch Knight or an Arcane Trickster Rogue. So that is a massive change from patch 8. But we now have the Elixirs of Resistances, and there is one, so this is kind of interesting. Let's say we have our Hill Giant Strength Potion active. We have our Strength at 27. I'll show you a little cool trick here. If you drink the Elixir of Universal Resistance, which normally an elixir would replace your ability there, you actually get to keep your other elixir. So this is what I was talking about with the elixirs having some weird situations. Also, resistance to all damage is absolutely nuts. These are very rare to find, but yeah. It's an elixir in name, but it acts like a potion, which are completely different in Baldur's Gate 3. But let's go through them all here, because there are some resistances that are better than others. Fire resistance, very good. A lot of races also have built-in fire resistance, so that's something to keep in mind. I would say, though, that fire resistance is quite nice, so I'd put this around the B tier here, just because fire damage is very common, but there's a lot of races like tieflings that get the bonuses of fire resistance, and then rangers can get fire resistance. There's the Helldusk armor, fire resistance, so it's good, but there's other ways to get that fire resistance, and you can't burn, which is good if you use heat gear, because then not burning means you're not going to take that 1d4 of fire damage. And next we got Elixir of Thunder. Now, there's actually a funny way, because if you have Silence, this means you take no thunder damage at all. So there's actually something better than taking half damage, is taking no damage. Thunder damage is not very common either. I might just set this into the C tier. It's good, but I think there's better options here. We'll get to the Elixir, actually, yeah, the Elixir of Universal Resistance, the one that gives you resistance to all damage types and lets you use other elixirs while using this. It's S tier. It's not a true elixir because it acts like a potion. It doesn't replace your other elixirs. So yeah, that is obviously really good. You can see there, these last until long rest, whereas this one is 10 turns. So obviously a bit of a downside, but combat, how often do you have a fight that goes past 10 turns? Not often. Elixir of Psychic Resistance, you can see there, it's a very rare. Psychic damage can be devastating, especially late game. So this one I actually think is a little bit better than the others. I'm going to put this one into the A tier because psychic damage is from Mind Flayers, which is part of the hardest parts of the game. You see a lot of psychic damage, so that's something to keep in mind. It's quite common. Now, the elixirs of Cold and Lightning Resistance are actually interesting because let's say you go ahead with drinking one of these potions, so you get the lightning resistance. You can't be shocked, electrocuted, or jolted. That's cool and dandy, but a simple create water will remove that, unfortunately. So boom, yeah. So yeah, we got lightning resistance, not no more. So we actually end up losing that benefit, but you still get the cold vulnerability, unfortunately. So yeah, if you use the cold potion, you get the same thing there. It's interesting how it works. It'll remove the vulnerability, but you don't get the resistance. So not a major thing. I still think that this is a B tier. Actually, and this is very useful against Answer. So I might throw this into the A tier. Just don't drop water on yourself while you're using this. So I'm going to throw it right there into the A tier. And then the cold damage, this is the cold damage. We'll put the lightning one in there, and we'll put the cold damage into the B tier. So yeah, somewhere around there. Now, two of them you can't actually craft. That's the Thunder and the Radiant Damage elixirs. Radiant damage is actually really good because there's actually a cool new way in patch 8 that radiant damage can be used. So if you play as the Oath of the Crown Paladin and you use their Divine Allegiance ability, so let's say your teammate gets attacked, you're right beside them, you can take the damage for them. But the caveat is it actually applies it as radiant damage. So this has both pros and cons, because if you have Radiating Orb gear, you apply the Radiating Orbs yourself. But if you have the Elixir of the Radiant Resistance, you take half damage, so you can protect your teammates taking half damage for them. It's actually pretty crazy. So I will put this one into the A tier because of that cool new interaction. And also radiant, like all the radiant damage that you can take in this game is actually pretty high. And there's no other way to get resistance to it, unlike some of the other damage types. Elixir of Force Resistance is another one you can't craft. This is one that I'd also probably throw somewhere around the B tier. Force damage isn't common enough to be that huge of a threat. The Elixir of the Poison, Necrotic, etc. I would also say are probably around the B tier. And yeah, we'll throw the Necrotic one there. Necrotic's got that white potion look. Yeah, I guess they would all go into the B tier there. So yeah, we kind of had a balance around the B tier, which typically is where it goes. Elixir of Bloodlust, I would say this or the Strength Potion are typically the best, depending on your build. If you're in honor mode, the Bloodlust Potion will be better on your spellcasters, because your melee classes will only get one attack with that extra action, or they could do something else entirely with that action, but I would recommend that on spellcaster for 2 spells. This Strength Potion is the only way you can get a plus 8 tier Strength modifier, which is very nice on a lot of classes, especially those that have Tavern Brawler, which will double the Strength modifier to attack and damage rolls, meaning you get a plus 16 to attack rolls and damage rolls. It's huge. The Elixir of Universal Resistances doesn't work like an elixir, so you can use this with one of the other ones, and getting resistance to all damage types is absolutely insane. It only lasts for 10 turns, but that's still really good. And the Elixir of Vigilance, I'm going to move it down a little bit. This is super useful for getting that +5 to initiative, especially early on in the game, and in a lot of other situations. Someone should always have these active if possible, because that just means that they're likely to go first if they didn't take the feat for this exact thing, because the alert feat will also give you that. And the Strength Potion, again, is also really nice, the 21 Strength, which is easily gotten, as I mentioned, from Auntie Ethel. And then the increased critical hit chance. This could go to top of the A tier, but I think that increased crit chance, people are arguing with me that the Champion Fighter is one of the most powerful subclasses in the game, when you can get the same effects from just a single elixir. The Elixir of Heroism is also great because the Bless will stack, and then all the other ones there as mentioned. So let me know your thoughts on the most powerful elixirs in Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know what type of tier list you would like to see next. I hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next video.